I think that's the problem with processing as well. I think that's the death knell of what we've been seeing for everyone, and where they're getting the most stuck is the idea of processing, because that's fixating on the problem at the level of the problem, and really the answer, like you said, for everything is holistic, and the answer is it's a perceptual problem, so it is a one click fits all. But if you're fixated on something, what the spirit must do with you first is relax your mind from where the fixation is, so that the true help and what is actually supportive can be given to you. So that's why movie watching for awakening is so important, because it gives that relaxation in the mind. It relaxes you away from the character you think you are, and you can watch the exact same story and seeming problem play out on the screen with a different character in the leading role, and therefore you feel less attached and hiding of the guilt and the shame that's really up for healing. You stop protecting it when you watch someone else face it. And that's what I think is just so amazing about what we're learning, what we've learned during these 30 days, is that this is not a problem fixing answer solution order of business. It's a problem and a dissolving of the problem and allowing the answer to simply be there. What we're wiping away again and again, all I see is that the problem, the perception that there's a problem is the only difficulty that anyone's having. And then that fixation on that problem, and we're still fixing that perceived problem, is where time and space seems to go on and on and on from. And that's the loop. It's the perceiving of a problem and then fixating on that problem and trying to fix that problem at the level of the problem. Talk about repetition.
So what is our actual responsibility if we do have an upset?
Well, first of all, it's so simple. All minds are in communication. If you notice an upset, first of all, I would say stop thinking of it as your personal upset. It's the upset in the mind, and luckily you have become aware of it. That's it. So your function and your responsibility is to bring awareness of the upset in the mind to the spirit and go, help. Here I have found and discovered an upset. And when you don't take personal responsibility for it, like it's your upset and you're responsible for fixing it, you've already relieved yourself of so much guilt and shame and hiding and false responsibility that it's very easy for the spirit to seemingly deliver to the mind, the one watching, the dreamer of the dream, the capital A answer. And none of that happens for a character. Although you may still be experiencing yourself as a character, it's the mind that's awakening, and everything that the character you experience yourself to be and all characters you see before you are doing is playing out a play. A dramatization of a seemingly inward condition where there are conflicting beliefs and desires that need to be outpictured for the mind to get it and wake up. And it's a wake-up play and a wake-up world, and you really don't want to start interfering with the play if you yet haven't received the message of what the play is saying. And the play is saying, you don't know who you are. You're mistaken in the one you think you are. And I've got some really good news for you. True, this world cannot tell you who you are, but it can tell you who you're not. And eventually, through pain and distress, or if you choose the Holy Spirit, through being a happy learner, you can discover the truth of who you are, and it can become a consistent experience while you seem to behold an entire world. So it really is eureka if you can see that no problems exist that are personally yours to solve. I would say the word personal is a definition of the problem rather than a responsibility. Personal and responsibility never go together. And anytime it feels personal, then you're in false responsibility, and you should rush to the Holy Spirit if it comes to your awareness and ask to be relieved of the illusion that there's something personal going on at all, instead of a grand play, a dramatization of what the mind needs, the awakening mind needs to remember its true self. It's a very high state of mind, yet coming into the awareness of being the one watching is the difference. And there is a very natural, simple way in which the Spirit brings us to that awareness, rather than some kind of self-inquiry where you try and force that idea, amalgamate it into like an entire cacophony of ideas you have knocking around in your mind, that personal mind again. There's a way in which the Spirit, through this very highly individualized seeming life plan of the character you're attached to, can unwind you very gently, and also, if you're open, very immediately into an experience of suddenly being shifted very gently, like having your breath taken away with a kiss that you didn't expect, into a state of mind where you're the one observing, where you're the one watching what's occurring, swept off your feet by the Spirit, surprised by joy, completely confounded in a really good way, where you're like, huh. And then there's just a stillness where there isn't an interpretation of what's happening. And that's all you need. That experience is all you need to allow yourself to ground in what the Spirit shows you versus what you've been telling yourself. And so this entire 30 days of presence has been a retranslation, not just with whom you're looking or listening, but an active choice. And the simple truth that all minds are in communication, and choosing one voice to interpret everything you see. And that's the shift. One voice, a solo, singular interpretation of what's before you, one that is purely loving and holds no fear of any kind. It doesn't need to judge between the symbols. It simply draws your attention to what's helpful, draws your attention. Everything that is supportive for the mind lights up if you take a moment to notice. And it becomes extremely relaxing, because there isn't a gap where you might choose between two things and make the wrong choice, and there ends the false responsibility. You are in a relaxed state, and as every single thing in front of you where the attention needs to go lights up, very simply and gently, it's like an illuminated path all the way home.
What about kind of that, like, impatience to get there type of thing, or when you feel like you're in Groundhog Day or something like that, and you want the Spirit to come in stronger, or you want the things to change faster, that type of thing, where things appear kind of monotonous and you don't know if you're making gains or reverting sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer yet again is that's a personal sense of responsibility and a desire to be in control, instead of relinquishing of a control you don't have by simply acknowledging you don't have that control, and a looking and a watching what's occurring and unfolding with the Spirit. Then there is no path. You're really in that lit spot every step of the way. You're feeling cared for and really clueless, yet very certain that all is well. What you're describing is a situation where you're not aware all is well. You think there's something better in the future. This is not okay. This is not enough. which means that it will feel like Groundhog Day and it will seem to loop and repeat again and again, simply because your focus is too minute. And so you need to pull back to a big picture view with the spirit beyond the character's preoccupation. If you do that and you relax your mind, first of all, from thinking there's a problem, that things should be different, then you'll be very easily able to receive the actual communication for the mind that's awakening. And so that's it. When it gets focused down too tight, then preoccupied, then the mind can't receive the overall message. If you're fixated with the character just on the stage left, down at the front, who's making strange faces, and you're not listening to the speeches being given at the back of the stage, you're not watching that bigger picture, then you're going to lose out on the overall communication. And the overall communication remains the same through all time and space. It has always been the same, and if you can relax your mind back, you'll start to hear the spirit again and again. Look over once more many things that you have experienced in your life where there seems to be an unforgiveness, and you will see it differently. It's absolutely miraculous. And this moment is the same. Just take a deep breath and say, okay, what's helpful to be looking at here? And if there isn't anything in particular, it will be brought to your awareness as soon as you stop grabbing for it or searching for it or demanding to have it. It's that very demand and asking for something in form that's diminishing your awareness of what's already been given. There's just so much communication that's already being delivered, but you've not yet received. And so the invitation is just to relax back into a receptive mode where you're in receiving mode from the world rather than interactive mode. You're just really open to what you're going to learn. And you're not afraid anymore either, because you're not going to learn something personal where you did something personally wrong and personally are going to get corrected for it. You're actually just going to discover, you're just mistaken. You're just mistaken in what you thought was unfolding. And that's okay. Just like a small child, you're just mistaken about things. And it's like, it's okay, all's well. And then you can carry on playfully and lightheartedly because you've come back to that awareness. And so it's great if we watch for things like boredom or irritation or feeling like we're stuck in a loop. We'll start to notice that we're minimizing fear and we're not bringing it to the spirit's attention because we think it's too small. And our only function is to be in that communication, because all minds are joining communication, and it's more like a treasure hunt for that pearl of great wisdom. And everyone's on that treasure hunt, if you like to see it that way. And anyone who gleans any little bit of awareness about what the mind is experiencing or seeing, any seemingly separate person can bring that awareness, while you think you're a person, to the spirit, to have it brought and raised for the entire mind. And as a result, your willingness to bring items of shame, your willingness to face the guilt, is what relieves the mind of the idea that it's personally yours, your friends, anybody's. It's just a mistake that needs to be relieved, but first has to be drawn up fully into awareness. And so it's like a treasure hunt for happy children, for a pearl of great wisdom at no price.
Yeah. First thing, there's no problem, and it shouldn't be different. Like, the experience shouldn't be different than it is. I think it's sometimes for like a high experience, or not like a insanely high experience, but sometimes the experience seems monotonous and you're saying, okay, is this it?
Well, that's
or
wonderful,
am I doing
actually.
all that I am supposed to do here? Or like,
there's one point you just made which is absolutely fantastic. The experience couldn't be different than it is, because it's coming from the beliefs and desires in your mind, which the outside world is demonstrating to the one watching are there. So it couldn't be any different, even if you changed everything in the form immediately, even if you thought of yourself as a worldly manifester or something, it still wouldn't change your experience, because your experience is coming from the beliefs and desires that are there. So even if it's monotony, it's still inside we must look. No exterior shift or change of any kind will alter the experience. The experience is solely coming from the beliefs and desires that are being held in the mind and are in conflict with one another. It's the conflict that you want to notice, the way where you're holding 1% of a belief and a desire in one direction, and in the exact opposite direction you're holding 99% of a belief and a desire, and they're cancelling each other out, and there's a conflict and a disturbance. The more 100% we are for something, the easier it is for the spirit to harness it. So you don't even need to fear the beliefs and desires that you hold. It's simply your awareness of them that restores them to the exhilaration and the enthusiastic, happy learner. And the spirit can use it all. But the conflict, which is the minimizing of the fear, the seeming boredom, the slight irritation, the kind of dull day, that's the one you got to watch for. You have to become intolerant of that. The minute you notice it, you want to go straight to the spirit with an absolute certainty that this need not be. I mean, this is very joyful. People think that they're just complainers or something. It's not at all like that. You're the one who's going to have it resolved in your awareness within minutes if you're devoted enough to go, this is no longer okay. I don't want to spend another dull day. I've had enough. There has to be a better way. It's starting to sound like a children's rhyme. But it's true. And that is what restores the kingdom to your awareness. That is the difference. It's because there's an intolerance that has come and a certainty that has replaced it of that this need not be. There's a mistaken thinking for a split second. Of course it would just be brought to resolution. Why would you live with it? Why would you go around having any dull days? And that's where the epicness comes from. Not a scenario change, not a change of form of any kind, but an absolute change of way. That you're certain that your way does not work, but the Spirit's does. And you just restore yourself. And you just go to the Spirit and you just say, listen, dull day, not into it. What's happening? Where am I making my mistake? You don't sit on your thinking, I'll just try harder. No.
Yeah, and then when you bring that to the Spirit, for me it's kind of like it might be a few moments or something, but all of a sudden I might start thinking about something, and that'll be the thing. Like it sometimes comes subtly. Like
a little insight starts to rise.
Like all of a sudden my mind, like I say, okay, I give it over, and then I move on to something else. Maybe like 5 minutes later, my mind starts thinking of something, and that's it. It comes gently in, right? Would you say that's sometimes how it works? Like when you're shown what it is.
Yeah, because it's simply delivered to you. It's dropped like gentle rain from heaven. It's not... There's no striving. It really is. That's what I love, that in the Course when it says giving and receiving are the same. I always picture myself with my hands flat out open in front of myself. And I see that the easiest way for someone to receive something from me is if I hold it out in a flat hand, like when you're feeding a horse. Your fingers aren't in the way of them, even if they're messy, how they eat. And that is the best way to receive. My hands are wholly empty. Coming to my God. And this is our way. This is the way. There's no way in which you flip over those hands and they're like claws and you grab for anything or take anything. It's the difference between special and holy relationship, whether you seem to be interacting with the world or with people or with means and end. It's giving and receiving are simultaneous. And the other is grabbing and getting and taking, or giving even. It's already forceful. Picture yourself, if you're trying to give something to someone, your hands have to be closed in a fist if they're going that way, unless your hands are just open-handed. So energetically, that open or clenched is one of the simplest ways in which you can see where your mind is. Like we've talked about before, is it like a soft open hand experience, or is it a clenched fist of some kind? If you can notice how your hands are, a great spiritual teacher told me once, you can tell everything about someone by their hands. So I'm guessing this might be what he'd be talking about. It was a different tradition at the time, but this is very valuable. And there's nothing wrong with what you've just been trying to do. The only thing I would encourage you to notice is that if it's not a soft, upturned, open-handed experience of openness, then it won't give you what you desired. And that's the easiest way to convince the mind to take that pause. It's not going to give you what you desired. So that's the easiest way to relinquish the grabbing or the getting mechanism. And it's the same for love. There's nothing you can make happen, because it's restored to your awareness by not striving for it outside of yourself. And in that very moment, you'll be in receipt of an experience of love, and then it will also seem to be emanating from you, and it will feel loving to others. It's all about that relaxation in the mind, and for our purposes in this moment, the relaxation of the hands. So it's like, talk to the hand. The people aren't listening, talk to the hand and find out what you're really communicating, because it might be different to what you think, no matter what your good intentions were.
Yeah, bringing all small upsets, being intolerable of like feeling halfway average. The experience is just still reflective of the beliefs and stuff that are still there somewhere. So if it's not like feeling really epic, it's just something is still being cleansed out, you know. So, but it's not your responsibility to cleanse it out.
Well, no, if something is feeling not epic, it's not because something hasn't been cleansed out, and then now you've got, I've got a cleansing to do. No, it's actually simpler than that. If something isn't epic, you've put a limitation on the day. You've put conditions. The only reason everything isn't epic is because one has decided that some things are epic and some things are not. The transfer of training is not complete. So it's the limitation, a perceptual limitation of what the form needs to look like for us to have a certain experience, that's dulling the day.
Well, that's another belief then, right? So I believe that things need to look this way for me to feel epic. It's another kind of belief that's still lingering.
I'm just hearing in what you're saying that you're still making it sound like you have a personal problem that you're going to have purified. And I'm simply saying the personal perspective is the limitation on the day. And there's a way in which, without thwarting the personal preferences even, that you can hand over the day to the spirit yet again, using the rules for decision, and just simply have yourself washed of the portal through which you're looking, which is just so much more miraculous and instantaneous and gentle, and would have you rushing to the spirit. And I think for myself, that's the difference. I'm convinced of that. And so I'm rushing to the spirit if that's what's showing up. If there's a condition showing up and a small portal is appearing through which I'm peering and I don't like what I'm seeing, I just want to be wrong. I like about all of it. My distress is usually only caused if I can't see where I'm wrong about something, where I can't see where the judgment is. But if you are afraid to hear from the spirit when you go and you think the problem is yours, it's very hard to take the correction, which is of your innocence. The correction is not that you have a problem and this is what you need to do to fix it. That model of problem and fixing is just so ingrained in our mind that it's very hard to shake it. But that is the difference of this pathway of A Course in Miracles. It's about it never was. So you've just added something to the day that isn't true.
So
if you're not having a good experience. Yeah.
Would you say it's more akin to that? I must be looking through a filter of some kind that doesn't need to be there. So show me what this filter is. Which I've often found to be like, one of the filters is, I'm not doing the most epic thing I could be doing. Or this isn't something, this isn't it, or that's a common one for me.
It is, but I'm still hearing the same thing, whereby it sounds like Chris has a problem that he's going to the spirit for, and he's going to get shown that it's that problem he's experienced before. And I'm asking you to go and offer all of this to the spirit so you can be washed of the idea of Chris entirely in a millisecond. And that's far more relaxing. And I mean with no loss. It's just that we've taken on this persona that isn't ours. The persona is the filter. Not how the day looks, and not even all the preferences of Chris. They're not even a problem. It's just the lack of awareness that we suddenly think we're this character. That's the filter. That we've suddenly been injected with a couple of thoughts or preferences from the past that we associate with the character we're used to playing. And so we didn't even notice that suddenly everything's a bit dulled down and grey. It's just the lack of noticing. It's just the lack of awareness that it just happened. So it's an intolerance that has to come experientially, that again and again allows you to notice what 2020 vision feels like and be intolerant of 19 out of 20 vision, if there's such a thing.
How do you bring that to the spirit? I mean, what do you do? What does that look like? If you feel to wash the character away, like what does that look like?
Well, to say that already, it already sounds frightening. I'm going to take this to you so you can wash the character away. This is something that you love very dearly and has proved an item of safety in your mind for years, being this person. So that's not going to work. So the answer really is you're coming to the spirit because you've noticed you don't like how you feel. That's the simplest way. And allow the spirit in a very playful way then with you, in a highly individualized, whatever helps for you, wash you of the interference. There's no loss of a sense of sparkle and playfulness, even whatever idea you would associate as you. Just the interference gets washed. Just all that's not happy gets washed. So there's no loss. Your experience is that you are a more bright and brilliant version of yourself, for want of a better word. That's the experience. Because it's like the light trying to come through a filter. The more that you can cleanse the filter it's coming through, as in just have it bright and shiny and washed, then the purity of the light is what's seen. And you are the light. And what you've enjoyed yourself being in any happy moment has been the purity of the light breaking through. All we want to do is diminish in importance all those conditions you've put in place under which the light will be let through. The truth is simple, and the simple truth is all minds are in communication. You are the one who is aware there's a disturbance in the mind, that there's a lack of peace, and your function is to bring that awareness to the spirit immediately. If there's any tools or techniques or things the spirit will do with you that make you feel relaxed and will allow the awareness to come to you in a very unthreatening way, that's what will happen. The simple guideline is that just if there's a disturbance to your peace, you bring it to the spirit. You don't even worry about why there's a disturbance to your peace. That's a huge delay tactic people use because they try and take some personal responsibility for it and sit there judging themselves for not forgiving a person they don't want to be in a conversation with. It's like, just come to the spirit. It's one-stop shopping. Isn't that relaxing? How can you mess that up? And even if you forget, then you go, right, I needed an increased disturbance in my peace to remind me to go to the Spirit. So here I come. The Spirit doesn't care why you came. You came out of joy, you came out of disturbance to your peace. It's the fact that you came that mattered. To join with your true self. That's the relief. Remember, if you've always been very devoted and very good and very responsible for doing your best, then those will be the very things that will be working against you for coming directly to the Holy Spirit. Whereby you acknowledge you don't know what's truly helpful, but you've accepted that you're deeply loved by one who does in every circumstance. The thing is, it's not your fault, ever. Like, under any circumstances, it's not your fault. The disturbance of peace you feel, so it can't be your fix. You just want to be restored to awareness of how it's already been fixed and solved for you. Anything you would do yourself would maintain the feeling bad. Anything. And after a while, even though momentarily little fixes or comforts or preferences that you set up for yourself feel good and calming and steadying, in the end, you want the true comforter. And that's all that happens for that steadiness of experience to come in. Is that's all you trust in. The only horrifying moment anyone could ever have is for a millisecond the thought of it's my fault. And it's never going to be your fault. It's never going to be true. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It's never going to be true. And that's quite amazing if you actually hold that as a meditation during the day. It's not my fault. Not as a defense now, but as an invitation to be shown how that's true. It's not anybody's fault.